Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet and of YouTube. Welcome to Jibber Jabber. I am your host, Skadarmas, otherwise known as Tone Shift, as always. With me today, we have a full house, a full 7 people, myself included. First up on the list, we have one of the British people, Darkness, the Madman.
Hello again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sitting directly across from him in the delightfully British corner, the author of Change, the author of the Patreon exclusive reading Soaring on Little Wings, which I have a lot to talk about today, Tom117Z.
Hey, yo.
And just kind of chilling out on Tom's head, we have Tux.
Hello there.
The local meme
I
lord.
just shot the top of my head, so I think I just killed him.
Wait, what?
Tom is playing Pavlov VR despite my repeated insistence that he should not in the middle of Jibber Jabber.
I'm still talking. I've turned the volume down so I can hear you all fine.
That doesn't help. You know, whatever.
I will still talk. I'm going to prove you wrong, Brian. It's my mission.
I hope
You have already failed.
There's a time and a place.
I hope you run into a chair while you're playing VR and just fall.
Next up, in the background, just kind of staring into your soul, as he always does, we have Paladin.
Yo.
That's here. Joining us for the first time in a while, we have Hades, who's looking sideways at the British corner and the small Tux like he wants to go and skewer them with his saw cleaver.
I'm watching you.
No, Darkness. Tom's first.
Stop.
And
Oh, God.
lastly, apparently this looks like I'm holding this person, but this was not the intention, I promise. We have Lumina Starlight.
He's alive.
Hello.
Yeah, apparently these guys are shipping us now. Great.
Yeah.
Wait,
Wait, what?
Tone and Chrysalis is my
I
ship.
said
No.
Always ship Tone and Chrysalis.
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
Tone and Chrysalis, we're not going to break that up.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely not. Don't know. We know the outcome.
Okay, I obviously missed something in the week.
Essentially, after last episode of Jibber Jabber went up, in which Lumina, made her first appearance, Hades decided to poke some fun by saying that I was holding her. Because it does
I
kind
do
of
not
look like
believe
that.
I started that.
Well, someone did. Someone did.
Don't look at me. I said
I'm
nothing.
the
either.
innocent Brit here.
I say I
Innocent.
say either Tux or Soviet.
Yes, I may be mad, but I'm innocent.
It's better than the. It's better than
Just
the.
wait until your fans start with a clop fix.
No.
Do it.
No, because then I'll have to read them out of morbid curiosity.
And then Tux was made.
Ooh, I didn't know you were going
What?
down the dark side, Tom.
Hey, one time apparently a friend of mine found clop images of me on the internet, and I wanted to see them just because I was curious. All right.
What?
There's actually clop art with you.
There are some
yeah,
things
he
you'll
couldn't-
never know.
Please tell me it's
This
crystal.
is one of them.
I don't know. I don't know. I never found them. My friend couldn't find them either. He saw them once and then never found them again. Apparently, it was just someone drawing a picture of my OC with a ridiculously, stupidly large endowment, sharing it with a bunch of his friends, and then them all fantasizing what they'd want my OC to do to them. And I'm just sitting here like, dude, I'm a sub.
The day I find freaking clop images of change is over. I'm leaving the internet forever.
It's too late.
Ah,
Some with Tom and Twilight.
oh, God.
Stop it.
The madness has begun.
Ah,
Explosive shotgun, don't tempt me.
welcome to Jibber Jabber.
What's with
You get
shipping
a
with
shotgun, I'll get
changelings?
a
I
blackjack.
swear. First we had Tone and Chrysalis. Now we have Tom and Twiggles.
Yep.
Damn it.
Don't even get me started on that.
Oh yeah, thanks Luminara for that.
Yeah.
You can thank that one.
Yeah. You know what? Before I even get onto the planned topics, I suppose I should talk about that a little bit. I don't know if we've talked about it already, but fucking Lumina here at some point decided it would be funny to insinuate that I was Tux's dad.
Yes, that was me.
Something you want to tell us, Brian?
Well, for one thing,
That is
well,
a giant leap.
well, she's wrong. First of all, that's the main thing I want to mention. She is objectively wrong.
Very
Aw.
wrong. Absolutely wrong. As well as it's a joke, in real life, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, yeah, that. Plus, it doesn't help that Chrysalis and Toneshift the pony are not biologically compatible to produce offspring.
You know, magic. It's creative.
It has its
Yeah,
limits.
No, the only thing that's the problem is that
And every day, ponies are breaking those limits.
I mean, just ask Twilight to help. She'll take it as a challenge.
No. I do not need the mental image of Tone and Chrysalis on a bed with Twilight off to the side reading off instructions.
No.
Fuck
You
me,
understand.
fucking.
The real problem
Twilight
with
Clock
this.
Fix. Hello.
The real problem with this is that in real life, tone shifts around 21-ish.
22.
Okay?
22.
22.
Yes.
22-ish.
19.
Okay. Let's do the math. I'm 15, and
You're 15.
You're
yes, I'm 15.
Wow.
Damn.
That would
Um,
explain the
okay.
memes.
Tone's an early adopter. What can you
I'm
say?
15, so that means for me to exist, Tone would have had to get someone pregnant at age 7. I can feel the FBI knocking already.
I'm pretty sure. I am pretty sure Chrysalis didn't come barging into a Ponyville house to fuck a cult and then leave. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Enough of that topic. Okay.
Okay.
This is
That
not
was
the
a topic?
this is not no. We're in improv mode right now, but this is a very NSFW, and that's not what this show is about.
Not
So-
shape or moon.
We don't even know what this show is about at this point, so you
It's
know.
about us talking about stupid shit.
Eh,
That was
Pretty much.
within reason. The reproductive habits of a changeling queen are not within reason.
True.
well. Considering
I mean,
all the
you are
science
reading
you make
about,
with Chrysalis.
That Chrysalis dating Twilight story. That
That's
goes into some detail.
yeah, but you see, that's more about the dating and the.
Oh, I got that.
You see, that story's more about the dating and the romance than it is about the reproduction. So.
I fixed
Uh,
my mic. Fuck
It
you.
does have a few jokes about it, if I recall.
Oh,
Namely,
yeah.
when Chrysalis is meeting her parents.
Yeah.
Whoa.
All the
The power
posers.
of fan fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, onwards to the pre-planned topics. Jesus, we're already 7.5 minutes and we haven't even started yet.
Hey, we're filling
Yay.
out.
Fix my mic.
You're fine, Darkness. Now then, I actually have something kind of important I want to bring up. So, as many of you who are listening to this, and most of you in here, because the vast majority of you are my patrons, know, ever since September of 2017, I have been doing a reading of Soaring on Little Wings. A story written by Tom117Z about a human who died and was reincarnated as a Pegasus filly in Equestria by spooky means. And it is a lengthy story full of a lot of charm, heart, emotional moments, sappy moments. It's great fun. It's a good read. And
Tom's a bastard.
yeah, and I've been doing a reading of it pretty much since September, like I said. And yesterday, Saturday, November the 24th, I sat down and recorded the rest of it. I only had 4 chapters and an epilogue left to record, just over 10,000 words. I buckled up, I tightened my waist, and I did it. Which means...
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that means that Soaring on Little Wings is now complete.
Blah.
And as I have been...
Yeah.
Feel free to applaud, but I don't need it. Anyways.
I'm applauding in game. There you go.
Ugh, click, 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 click. I thought it said get out of there. Anyway.
Hmm.
So,
He won't get out of there.
yeah, I know. He's too stubborn. Damn Brett. Anyways.
I'm talking, am I? Shush.
When addressed. Anyways. So,
Hey.
anyways. So,
He's not ignoring you.
So, at any rate, so, as I've been stating for a while now, once I was like halfway through the story and such, and I started getting within sight of the end, I started contemplating and pointing out to the audience here on YouTube and just in general what the plan was upon completion of the reading, and those plans have not changed. The plan being that upon completion of a multi-chapter Patreon-exclusive reading, I'll choose a date to begin uploading it, and then once a day, it will go up to YouTube, a chapter each day. And now I've already done that with Soaring on Little Wings. It is scheduled to start going public for everyone on YouTube on December 1st. So in basically 5 or 6 days, maybe less. So, in a short-ish order, that story will begin going up 45 entries long, so a month and a half of uninterrupted posts. Strap on your britches, people. This is going to be a long ride. But while that's going, I'm sitting back here trying to think of what I want the next Patreon-exclusive reading to be. I haven't come to a decision yet. I've got a few possibilities rolling around on my noggin, but I'm going to abstain from mentioning either of them until I've made up my mind. So, for the time being, I'm just going to let that sort of go on its way. I'm taking the rest of the month off after this episode of Jibber Jabber because there are a few things that I have actually kind of been struggling with. I'm sure many of you have noticed that a ways back, I tried to put out 2 chapters in each story each week. So a chapter on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and of course the exclusive reading on Saturdays. Wednesdays would either be reserved for incomplete stories or one-shots. But if you'll notice, recently I've kind of fallen behind on that so that I only get a chapter in each story done each week, which is not an acceptable pace for me. But I get the feeling I know what that is. It's in part the length of the chapters I'm recording, but more than that, I get the feeling it has to do with just the fact that I've been doing this for a while now, without breaks. Like the last couple months, I have missed my 5-day breaks. I've been forcing myself to keep going as a result of missing these uploads. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to take a slightly longer break, only by a couple days than normal, to try and recharge my batteries and not give my readings much thought, so that when I come back to them all in December, I can hopefully tackle things with more renewed energy and vigor and enthusiasm and get these things back on track the way they should be, 2 chapters in each story a week. That way we'll actually have a decent pace of progression. After that, and of course right now the current lineup is Library for 2 and Pony Courtship Rituals, which we just talked about a minute ago when it comes to changing reproduction habits. So, in regards to...
Tom.
What?
Since we're going into December, like you did last year, are you going to do a 12 days of Christmas readings?
No, I'm not doing that this year.
Aww.
It was extremely taxing on me last time, and I wound up missing one of the days. I do have something planned for Christmas this year.
Cool.
So you'll all see that when it comes out. I'm not going to say what it is and spoil the surprise. You'll get it on Christmas Day. But yes, there will be a Christmas reading. Look forward to it.
I know what it is.
Yes, yes, you do. Now then.
I'll get it out of Tom later.
Yeah, no, you won't. Anyways. So, now with that in mind, I'm contemplating what I'm going to do once I finish the shorter of the 2 currently lined up stories, which would be Pony Courtship Rituals. I'm about halfway through that one, I think. Maybe a little less. I'm not super far in, but it's not a super long story. It's like 12 chapters total, maybe? Something like that. I'm figuring that once I finish that one, depending on how I'm feeling, I might jump back to doing Changed Queen of the Hive and get that sucker wrapped up, because I only had 20 chapters left in it, give or take. And it's kind of been left on hiatus for a long time, and the Change series is one of my most active and popular readings since I sort of had my reading renaissance, if you will. So I'm contemplating going back to that after I finish Pony Courtship Rituals. Nothing is set in stone, though. Don't take my word for it just yet. Like, don't get your hopes too high. Don't take it as a guarantee. I'm considering it, but I'm not decided. So, yeah, there's just a general overview on things that I've been considering since finishing Soaring on Little Wings, and with that, we can move on to the next topic. I know that one was basically just me rambling for a little while, but I kind of needed to get all that out there. I might do a separate video to just cover that on its own at some point. We'll see. I don't know. Probably not, all things considered. I keep saying and I just don't, so pattern recognition kicking in. Now then. Next topic hopefully will last a while, because I know plenty of us here have at least played Dungeons & Dragons in some capacity. I have.
Yeah,
I do.
I have. Tom has. I know Lumina's played some, so I figured it might be a good idea to just go around the table and share some stories of Dungeons & Dragons or similarly styled tabletop role-playing games. I've got a few good ones, but does anyone else want to go first? What?
I haven't
I'm
played
good.
it, so.
So I played a game since we last talked about it, though it wasn't quite as trolly as the last one.
Well, entertaining or funny or fascinating stories would be ideal here.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the most that happened in mine is I almost died twice, and we kicked a bed down a stair at an ogre. So
I kicked that bed down some stairs on an ogre. That's interesting.
yeah. Oh, and at the end of the campaign, they let one of the vampire bosses live because she was a bit sad.
Because she was a bit sad.
Yeah, because we killed one of the two, which was her husband.
Oh.
So
Major
yeah, we let her live. We win the morality points, maybe because she's about to go out and probably murder a bunch of civilians.
Wow. All right. Okay. What about you, Lumina? I know you've played some. I mean, we've made characters for an FFD6 thing that still has yet to get off the ground.
Yeah, that. My DM for 40K was the guy who made his DM rage quit. Because he rolled a let me explain. He rolled a natural 20 on a check to let loose a bunch of zoo animals.
Okay.
So his DM just got mad and rage quit while all the animals went wild.
What was the context? Like, why were they at a zoo? What were they doing?
They were there for some sort of quest or something. They were Black Crusade, I believe. But yeah, bunch of animals free suddenly.
And the DM rage quit. Neat.
Yes.
And
And then there was a
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Then there was that time I played Pirate Finder, and the entire sewer system, all the water in the sewer system turned to gold because we rolled a nat 20 on luck.
Whoa. That's
Like liquid gold or solid gold?
Like coins.
That's a lot of gold.
Yes. Everyone was laughing for the next few minutes while that chaos went on.
How does that even work? Like, give us details here. Explain how one thing led to that happening.
Okay, so in the game, you kind of follow deities of your choice, and this guy supposedly had one of wealth. Well, when the natural 20 was rolled, all the water turned to gold, and you basically had a few minutes to grab as much as you could.
It was basically her giving him a blessing or something, or whatever the god was. She done.
Yeah. The god gave him a blessing.
It's like, here, have some money.
Yes.
Something Tone could use.
Have an entire sewer.
Don't I know it? Wow, that sounds magnificent. That's just magnificent.
Yeah.
It was.
Wow.
Nice.
I remembered one other thing from my campaign that was of note.
Oh crap.
Slightly amusing. Saying I told you like obviously the bed thing was at the beginning. Obviously the ending was with the vampire. Most of the campaign was just going through a haunted house, being hunted by Dracula, and trying to not get horribly murdered by various zombies of all the races of the world. Like at one point we reached the top floor. We were barricading the staircase. I checked one of the rooms. It turned out to be like a children's bedroom. However, when I went in there, I stepped a little bit too loud, and all of a sudden a ghost popped out shouting, "Don't wake the baby," and started throttling me from behind.
Wait, what?
So I didn't necessarily know it was a ghost at the time. I just knew something was throttling me from behind at the time. So I took my sword and made a swing behind me, trying to hit it. I rolled high, and then I stabbed myself in the back and downed myself
Oh.
with the
Man.
long sword.
Wait.
Yeah, I just freaking ran myself through a freaking sword. Not my highlight of the match.
That's hilarious.
Trust nobody, not even yourself.
Luckily, one of my teammates then came in, kicked the door down because it locked behind me after the ghost appeared. Managed to use one of his abilities to get the ghost away and then get me up before I bled out in 3 turns. So it all worked out in the end, and then the ghost eventually calmed down and showed us the way out of the house.
Okay, neat. You know that reminds me. The image of you stabbing yourself in the back reminds me of something funny that happened to my character in the last D&D campaign I was a player in. My character was Eileen Crowfinder, a wood elf ranger dual wielding a scimitar and a rapier, with a focus on aberrations as like her primary target. This was in D&D 5th edition, by the way. And at one point we were going through a swamp trying to find the mayor of a town we were helping, because he'd chased off some magic shit out into the night and had been fighting a magic duel against it and shit. Anyway, we were following him for a couple days, following the trail of destruction he had left in his wake, and then eventually at one point we were attacked by, I think it was a bunch of alligators. Now, for one thing, Eileen got fucked up at the very start of that fight, because, being the ranger with an affinity for swamps, she was leading the way. Got dragged underwater by an alligator, chomped up a bit, but once she was back into the fight, something hilarious happened. Now, with this character, again, she dual wields, so I make 2 attack rolls every time I attack. So, the first attack, and I had an ability that let me attack more than once in a turn, so I got 3 attack rolls, and if I hit all 3 times, I got 3 damage rolls in one round. Anyway, but the first roll, I just missed. Second roll, critical failure. So, my brother, who's the dungeon master, rolls a few dice behind his GM screen, smirks at me, and says, "You go to swing your sword, and it flies out of your hand and out into the marsh." So Eileen basically tried to hit the alligator, missed, swung her sword again, and lost her grip. She tried to swing her other sword, critical failure again. Same thing happens. The sword goes flying off into the marsh. So I gotta imagine that the visual is just this badass-looking wood elf in dark clothing wearing a cloak made up of the feathers of giant birds she has personally killed, wearing a giant raven skull as a mask, trying to hit this alligator and just throwing all her weapons in every direction into the marsh, just cursing at her breath, "God damn it, shit, fuck, god damn it." And the alligator's just nibbling on her ankles the whole time, just, this tastes funny.
And only the most competent of heroes in D&D.
She was having an off day. Most of the time, she was pretty badass, actually. She was just having a really shitty day that day.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch, indeed.
It reminds me of that week at work that I talked about on here.
Another story from D&D. This is from a different campaign where I was the dungeon master. Another equally hilarious event. In fact, I just have a lot of hilarious stories from this campaign because of one of the characters. I mentioned him a couple episodes ago. His name was Panmorn, and he was a dragonborn cleric who is just incredibly naive, gullible, and stupid. I already told the story about the poisonous butterfly that gave him a permanent dent in his face.
Same guy. Right.
Yeah. But there were a lot of funny stories in that whole campaign. For example, I don't remember if I told this one or not, so I'll tell it again just to be safe. But in the early parts of the campaign, they were going to an isolated mansion in the mountains where the owner of a talking crow they had procured lived. They were trying to return the crow to his owner, who happened to be a magician of some sort. When they get to the mansion, though, they find that the magician is presumably dead, and a bunch of soldiers under the employ, working under a knight, a dragonborn who I cleverly named Char of Mander. 50 brownie points if you can guess what that's a reference to.
Blue blood?
Wait, what?
He was
Hold up.
he was a red dragonborn named, and follow me on this, Char of Mander.
Oh, wow.
It's Digimon. It's
Pokemon! Oh my...
Fucking Digimon. Oh, God.
It's totally Digimon.
Tux?
No.
You're fired.
I can't be
That
fired.
was terrible.
Yes, you can. But
It's
yes.
clearly... What are you talking about Digimon? It's clearly Beyblades.
Anyways, so the group was quick to deduce that this Char of Mander guy, even though he was a knight of the realm, was up to something not good. And they needed to find the magician of this house or figure out what had happened to him. And they figured that this knight had probably done something to him for one reason or another and was trying to cover up. So they needed a way to get the knight and his soldiers out of the house. And what resulted was one of the most stupidly awkward and failed attempts at making them think the mansion was haunted I have ever seen. Between not very well acted attempts from the dwarf fighter to shout, "I saw a ghost, I saw a ghost." He rolled pretty low on his charisma, if I recall correctly. It's been a while, though. But so between that, but more than that, the tiefling warlock of the group, Nalalia, who interestingly enough focused more on utility magic than combat magic, like she could translate tomes and learn knowledge, but she wasn't much of a fighter. She tried to use an illusion spell to make everyone think that the mansion was suddenly coming alive with the spirits of the dead, and instead all that happened is she made a wimpy little voice say, "I'm a ghost." And while Char of Mander was searching the house in abject confusion by this, like Panmorn, in a rare moment of clarity, walks over to Nalalia and asks, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm sorry, I panicked." They eventually managed to convince Char to get out of there. I think they managed to do that by just setting the mansion on fire.
Wow.
After managing to sneak around and deduce that the mage was in fact dead and no longer here. But they managed to, get everyone out and they ran off to do their own shit. So at that point, and their adventure from that point was trying to prove that Char of Mander was actually a horribly corrupt individual.
Did they?
Eventually, that was the end goal of that particular adventure.
Was the DM just really not a fan of Charmander?
I mean, the DM was me, first of all, and
Are you really not a fan of Charmander?
I love Charmander. The reason I named the Dragonborn Char of Mander was just as a cheeky little reference to see how many people got it.
God damn it, Brian.
Yes, thank you. Anyways, so there was
Tone has died.
no. There was another instance in this campaign later on, where they were. It was in the aftermath of. I believe I mentioned this last time, where they were in a city that was haunted by the half-decayed spirit of a dragon, and was kind of like Silent Hill, mixed with Doom 3 or something. Yeah, they just finished dealing with the dragon. They were between adventures. And they were just taking some downtime in this abandoned city. And two of the characters, the druid and the fighter, the Dragonborn had died. Sadly, Panmorn died at the end of that adventure. But everyone else were trying to do a. What was it? Excuse me. Everyone else was going out of their way to, they were just taking some downtime. And at one point, the dwarf and the druid decided they wanted to get wasted because they'd had a stressful few weeks coming to a city that was essentially hell on earth, being attacked on all sides by horrific abominations that didn't even fall under the aberration category. They were so twisted. And, losing a party member and dealing with the aftermath of all kinds of shit. Tom, we can hear the sound of your gun going off.
All right.
Fucking cover.
So they eventually found the ruler of the city, the king's old personal private wine cellar, in which they found 2 bottles of an unlabeled form of beverage. They sniffed at it, determined it was alcoholic and exactly what they needed, and started drinking. Here's the problem. This was a beverage not meant to be drinking all on its own. It was meant to be added as just, like, small drops to other drinks because it was incredibly potent alcohol combined with crystal meth. Well, actually, no, not crystal meth. It was a form of LSD, acid. It was a hallucinogen. It was alcohol mixed with a hallucinogen. The intention being that it would break down everyone's inhibitions who drank it, while also making them see horrifying and freaky shit, to send them into a state of terror so that they'd tell the king of the city whatever the hell he wanted to know. So, he would use it as an interrogation method. He would sneakily feed it to prisoners or people he wanted to interrogate or question, and they would start saying horrifying things, and then he could question them because they'd believe they're about to be incinerated by a 5-headed demon from hell with scorpions for teeth or some shit. Yeah, so horrifying shit. These people just drank straight from the bottle. And, well, the results were hilarious. Like, the whole session was just them going around in drunken shenanigans trying to do something. I don't even really know what. They were just reacting to the shit I was having them hallucinate, which included, but was not limited to, giant crabs and hula skirts. The wall,
Welcome to Hawaii.
the walls turning into paint. Everyone looking like they were low polygon Tomb Raider 1 characters. And more just weird, freaky shit that I can't even remember because 1, it was a few years ago, and 2, it was that fucking crazy. But it was just but it was just nonstop madness. One of them wound up knocking himself out by trying to run through what he thought was an open door, but in fact it was a solid brick wall. And eventually they finally managed to pass out together in the library where Nalalia and her father were trying to find clues for their next mission. So just all of a sudden, a drunk dwarf and a drunk druid stumble in, proclaim that the crabs are coming, and pass out on the table. It was a fun day. It was a very fun day, all things considered.
Nice.
Yeah. The campaign ended only the next session because the guy who was playing the dwarf had a bit of a personal emergency and had to back out. And we never resumed after that, which is a damn shame. It was a great campaign. I loved the setting. But, yeah.
So many D&D campaigns just left behind.
Yeah. Another campaign that I was a part of. This was actually the first D&D campaign I was a part of that went for more than a session. My dad was the dungeon master. I played a fighter, a human fighter named Darman, and he has a running joke of his own. Everyone had their own little gimmicks in this group. That just kind of evolved naturally. For Darman, my character, his gimmick was he was stupidly tall, like he was 6'7". So like basketball player tall. And at least for the first 2 levels, every single time he got into a fight, he'd have to be dragged back because he'd be unconscious at the end of it. It was kind of disappointing because in the very first fight we got into, he jumped into the fray swinging a gigantic fucking greatsword. He one-shotted a skeleton, and then another skeleton just came up and clubbed him in the head, and he passed right out.
Wait, your dad plays D&D with you?
Yeah, so does Mom.
What?
We got my grandma to play once, too. That was unexpected.
How'd that go?
It went surprisingly hilariously because she didn't quite seem to understand.
I wish I had a dad like that.
I
That'd be
mean,
nice.
it's not surprising.
I mean, my dad's the guy who introduced me to D&D. But so, you know, now you mentioned that, now you got me mentioning that my grandma played D&D. I've got some stories about her too. But first, let me recite the rest of the stories from that original group with me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. My brother's character was Darius. He was the rogue, and we called him the Sneaky Feet. For very good reasons. He always managed to roll high on his stealth checks, but more than that, he had a few odd quirks. 1, he loved to eat spiders. He pissed on the corpses of his enemies, and he was terrified of trees.
What an odd combination of flaws.
He had a phobia of them. At one point, we were going through a forest, and he was already freaking out because we were in the middle of a forest. And then at one point, something bad happened. My character was knocked out, and everyone was like, ah, shit, we're going to have to make camp for the night. Darius's immediate reaction, without hesitation, no blinking, was, in the middle of a forest? Dad gave him some extra experience points for that performance.
My gosh.
Yeah, and Bridget, the other fighter of the group, played by my mom, had her own little gimmick in that she just wanted to kill things that were bad. But more than that, she had this really weird, like, romantic relationship with a character named Cookie, who was the chef of the caravan that we were in the employ of. Like, he served the food to everyone. Those two had a very, very weird relationship, where like you'd look and it's like, I swear they're banging, but they never have time to.
I'd make a comment, but you'd probably hate me after that.
Please do not.
never stopped you before.
So yeah.
Fine.
And there was an NPC character who was kind of a party member, but not really, named Clive. He was never drunk, but he was always very easily distracted, notably by butterflies, like all the fucking time. And he had a perpetual case of the hiccups, and he was remarkably simple.
It's always the butterflies, isn't it?
It's always the butterflies. Just, well, I don't know what happened. I just, ooh, butterfly. Clive, focus.
Sounds like
Sorry.
a cinnamon bun.
He was great. And finally, let's see here. So following all of that, let's see here. So now to talk about my grandma's character, because this is hilarious. Again, she didn't seem to understand fully. Like, she played the game and she was decent at it, and we have some very memorable moments from her interpretation of how to do things, which wound up sticking. Like, for example, at one point she had a spell that let her talk with creatures and animals. She was a bard, for one thing, so she had that spell in her repertoire. And at one point we were going into a warehouse to clean out a bunch of spiders, and she determined the best course of action would be to talk to the spiders. So she used that spell to talk to animals, and tried to talk them into leaving and going somewhere far, far, far away. And this involved her deciding she would routinely, every time she was talking to them, for some reason, she would clasp her hands in front of her chest like she was praying and look up at the sky. It's like, you're not talking to God, you're talking to spiders, first of all. But anyways, so, and she'd routinely stop mid-sentence to look over at David and ask him a lore-related question, David being my brother and the Dungeon Master. So what she tried to do, she tried to convince them that Lolth, the Spider Queen, had found a special place for the spiders far to the east, and that they should go there. For a minute she had their attention, but then she blundered a charisma check and a history check, and they caught on to the bluff and attacked the party. So that was one memorable moment. It was great because she thought first to negotiate with wild spiders, so kudos for that. Then, a bit later on, we had briefly spelunked unintentionally into the Underdark, trying to rescue the daughter of a local merchant. And when we were coming back up, we were in a tree or something. You know, we'd camped in the Underdark and we were coming back up. We were in like a weird hollowed-out tree house thing, like a wood elf dark mage settlement. And we were wanting to see what the situation was. Grandma's character had the second highest stealth. I had the highest, but I was preoccupied watching the door or some shit. So we had Grandma's character, named Penelope, if I'm remembering correctly, go up to the window to look outside. And so she gets there, and without rolling or anything, or confiding with the Dungeon Master, she just turns to the rest of the group and says, "Half the trees are gone." Which did not, in fact, happen in setting. But she did. So this led to us forming the running gag that Penelope's just insane. That she just hallucinates all the time.
Nice.
Also, kind of a funny thing about that campaign, where we started was in a abandoned mansion out in the middle of nowhere filled with undead. And David apparently had like a whole thing set up with that, with like an antagonist and things. He was expecting us to investigate where we had woken up, but we didn't. What we did is for one thing, we escaped the mansion early by breaking open a window and cleverly MacGyvering basically a rope to climb down with, and then we ran the fuck away. And then we never talked about it again. It's like,
Derailing.
he was confused. Like, okay, you guys are in an abandoned house filled with the undead. You were kidnapped and brought here by who knows who, and you're not even curious as to who? I guess we just kind of forgot to question that. So we went to Neverwinter and started doing jobs for the local lord, and that campaign didn't last as long as I would have liked, but it was fun while it lasted.
Probably would have lasted longer if you did the whole quest thing.
I mean, it was more just because our schedules got fucked up, is why that group broke apart. There was another campaign that I was a part of. Again, my brother was the Dungeon Master, but this one wasn't played with the family. I was the only family member there. Everyone else were just friends of ours, Leo, Perez, a few others. And in it, we were in a city called Jagged Gale that was being blasted by this horrible plague. There was like Like, the entire harbor district of the city was infected with this dangerous rabies-like plague that, caused ulcers and other horrible growths on the skin and drove people into madness and violence. It was a nasty affair. Our characters were on a ship that got blown up by a blockade quarantining the city, and we managed to swim to shore. And we managed to seek shelter in the quarantined part of the island section of the city and volunteered to help out with the situation, in exchange for shelter, coin, and food. And there were a few great moments. For one thing, the bard character named Lemley Towers was just a joy, an absolute delight. The guy who played him is just such a ball of enthusiasm and energy that Lemley Towers was a joy to be around at all times. And what was weird is the first antagonist of this campaign, who was meant to just be kind of a throwaway introductory villain, wound up becoming the main antagonist for the entire story. Because we weren't supposed to let him live, but the monk and bard of the group decided to spare him. Let me explain. As it so happens, the villain was named Nolan, and he was a were-rat. And as far as were-rats go, he was a runt. He was small, he was tiny, he was weak, but he was smart, he was clever. And he had been ousted and kicked out of the were-rat clan he'd been a part of for being a tiny, weak runt. He wanted revenge on them, so when he retreated to the quarantined part of the city where everyone was being infected by this horrible plague and were in desperate need of a cure, he devised an admittedly genius plan. He could cure them by giving them bits of his blood as like an antidote. The thing is, that would pass the curse to them and make them his subordinates. So he started basically this cult of were-rat subordinates through his blood, and eventually, this cult got large enough to be a problem to everyone else. So our group was sent in to eliminate Nolan. And we did this by pretending to be interested in his antidote, in his cure, in receiving it. So while the bard was up on a stage playing some lively music to the cultists, essentially keeping their attention, my character went and slit Nolan's throat. Might as well have killed him. He was dying, bleeding out. And then, all of a sudden, the monk, played by Leo, goes, I stabilize him. Now, the reason for this, his reasoning, because we didn't fully understand at the time that the curse was that people who imbibed in the blood became compelled to become servants to Nolan. Like, we just thought they were just genuinely serving him out of gratitude or something. We didn't realize it was part of a curse, because we're not lore buffs. So his reasoning was that we could still get the cure to everyone else. So what that involved was we captured him, fought our way back to the quarantined part of the city, had him put in a cage, essentially, and he became... And he has this really weird relationship with the party. On the one hand, yes, we are at odds with one another, but we are also almost friendly with each other. Because, like, the monk and the bard would routinely make small talk, be friendly with him, and bring him cheese to lift his spirits, because, he was being stuffed in a cage and bled all the time to cure people. So, like, the only party member who adamantly hated who adamantly hated Nolan was my character, and that was for ideological reasons. My character hated oppression of any form, and Nolan oppressing people with that blood thingy he does, well, that was just one step too far. So, but everyone else was, at the very least, on speaking terms with Nolan, even if we typically came to blows. So, it was just a fun time all around.
At least until all those people you were curing with him decided that they were loyal to him.
Oh yeah, and then that began the climax of the story, in which we had to retreat from the quarantine district of the city. We wound up meeting up with Nolan in a warehouse where he had been planning to ambush us with a giant mutated werewolf that had been stomping around. But we didn't bother waiting for that to show up. David even had the werewolf stat blocked and ready to go, but we decided, nah, fuck that. Nolan was giving his big evil person speech up on the rafters, with the guy who had been doing the bleeding to him having died by 1,000 cuts. Poetic justice, according to Nolan. And while Nolan was giving his epic villain speech and explaining his plan, my character didn't care. He broke an oil lantern, spilled oil all over his entire bundle of arrows, lit an arrow on fire, and shot Nolan with it.
Just like that, huh?
Yeah, and he was hiding behind a crate, too, so Nolan didn't realize what was happening until he had a flaming arrow in his hip and was running away going, ah, shit!
Well, at least it
Even
wasn't
more than
an arrow
Ash,
to the
yeah.
knee.
So after that, we didn't even wait for the werewolf to come into the house, even though the warehouse was on fire. We just busted out through the same door that Nolan left through by using each other to climb up, and we chased his sorry ass down. We eventually
Nice.
lost him in the sewer, sadly. But still,
Aw.
yeah, it was an event, is what it was. Like Nolan in general was just a
Nolan's still up.
Nolan, for one thing, and yes, he is still out there, but the story doesn't quite end there. Eventually, we were trying to get all of the population across the bridge into the main part of Jagged Gale, but the bridge was blocked by a bunch of angelic sentinels who claimed that impure people could not pass, and in this case, being impure meant being cursed or being infected with the virus. So we needed to find some way to lift the curse from all of the people who were currently cured of the virus because of Nolan's blood donations. And we eventually came up with a way to do it. Namely, we would essentially hit Nolan with a poisoned blade. I forget where we got the poison. And the poison would slow Nolan's heartbeat to a point that he was about as close to being dead as you possibly can be without actually being dead. And this was enough to lift the curse from everyone he had cured, granting them passage across the bridge. And then, mostly because Lemley wanted to and was being super persistent and annoying about it, we cured the poison and allowed Nolan to wake back up. The curse was already lifted in everyone else, so it didn't matter. And then we basically just told him, look, we're letting you live because we think you're kind of neat, but just don't cause any more trouble, and you've lost. Just give it up and get out of here. He did, he left, and that was about where that campaign ended, with the rest of the party going into the city proper to wait out the plague and hopefully wait for things to get back to normal. Nolan was an interesting villain because he didn't rely on brute force. He was a schemer, he was a plotter, he was a planner, and he almost succeeded several times. And he just had the most adorable speech pattern. He was very jittery, he stuttered a bit, very high-pitched, yes.
Yes.
That is, so we've been talking about D&D for like 30 minutes. Or rather, I've been talking about D&D at all of you for 30 minutes.
Well, some of us chipped in a little bit. It's just been mostly you.
Yep.
I play a lot of D&D. I have a lot of stories. So, why don't we go ahead and move on to the last planned topic. Do you have any more stories of
boy.
Ben, Darkness?
Well, only one most recently, which I'm worried about.
Oh, boy.
And no,
Oh, boy.
he's not parachuting.
Oh, thank God.
Which, in a way, kind of worries me that he comes to the logical conclusion he's not much of a fan of heights, because usually he doesn't realize things like that until it's too late. Yes. I mean, I just thought, wow, I guess Ben is not as too risk-taking as I thought now and then. That's good, I suppose. That's good. That's one good thing about him.
Did you turn right around and double whammy it with something even worse?
Well, you could say that,
Oh, boy.
in a
He's
way.
getting there.
Oh, boy. And then he just told me there was one of the most well thought out plans, which I never thought I would ever hear coming out of his mouth. I was like, which I had to ask him to repeat it again. What did you have planned? Well, I was gonna carry on with all my studies, get all the work done, go through all the assignment stuff and everything, and also choose what sort of career I want to do. Yes, go on. And who knows? Might get my own place someday and might go for a car. But I think the best thing I should do is probably go for something a little bit more easy to control. I don't know, start off small.
Someone stole his phone.
I have to say, are you sure you're okay, Ben? Yeah. Are you really sure you're even Ben? Well, yes.
It's a changeling.
It's an imposter.
If only that's possible. Because I'm really getting worried. 'cause-
Who are you and what'd you do with Ben?
Okay, so here's
I
my
just-
here's my prediction. My prediction is that Ben just read about someone saying that that's the best thing he should do, and he's just repeating it, and he doesn't actually know what any of it means. That's my prediction.
Also, you say
I heard-
no car. He wants to start with something small. He started with something small? It's called a moped. He ended up driving through a college and setting it on fire.
Yes.
How else would you do it?
Not like that.
How smaller can you get?
You do it good.
You do it with some thought.
Well, for once, he's not even thinking of going after a ridiculous car. He's just thinking of a basic, like, Ford or something. Or even a Golf.
What has Canada done to him?
And I was just getting really worried. I thought, this must be some, like, joke or something. This must be someone else. This cannot be Ben. This cannot be the Ben I know.
It's
I
Canadian
demand to know
Ben.
who you are.
Canadian Ben.
It's gonna snow.
I mean, he's not in Canada though, so
Where is he again?
California.
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 Ah, that one. The
He's
other
on-
seat.
He's on
And
fire.
then something did come to mind. I had to ask. Well, I would have asked him, except he had to get to lesson, which was a pain. I wanted to ask him, where the fuck is he going for education? What kind of place is he in?
Oh no,
A
it's
brain
the,
transplant?
oh no, it's the
It's
place.
on fire.
No, it's the place from series 2 of Doctor Who where they go to the school where they're feeding kids things that boost their mental things so they can try and crack the code of the universe.
Oh god.
He's
The
go-
krillitane.
Yeah, that.
How do you
He's-
remember that?
He's eating krillitane oil. Oh god.
Oh boy.
Oh, no.
That's nasty.
I mean, I don't know what I should be worried about. The Ben I know or smarter Ben? Or this is a bit far fetched, but this cannot
Smart
be
Ben
so.
for when he inevitably relapses.
Because if
Like
I
a
Position
smarter
will be in.
Ben
But if
Ben's
this
gonna
fit-
come over. Ben's gonna move out of California just for a glass of water.
Mm. I mean, if this mad theory somehow to be true, not only would I rage, but I will have many questions, and then probably ask what. And probably, well, I don't know what I would bloody do to Ben after that. If he's somehow been messing with me this whole time, acting like he's been stupid the whole freaking time, making my life a
I mean,
I'm
it's pretty
sad
hard.
to
It's pretty convincing when
pretty
you
hard to
you
believe
set
that.
your moped on fire and you burn shit to that extent.
Not to mention, he managed to lose a job and college on the same goddamn day.
He's all like worth it.
Also, he's one of the few people I know who would move to a state while it's on fire.
Like,
Well, to be fair, for some reason, his parents had that idea. They thought California's a nice place.
It's a nice
I-
place this time of year. It's
Wait
nice
a
and toasty and warm.
Literally
all the
toasty.
Sights to see, yeah, fire. I even keep saying it, but I think, no offense, although she won't be watching this, but still, I think Ben's mother might be ill or just, well,
Maybe-
doesn't care for something.
Maybe she was
Because
trying
I
to get
keep
rid of
telling
him.
And
Like,
of
dang
course,
it, the
all lovely
hitman
people
failed.
They have. What about the fire? You still haven't replied. Are you listening?
Yeah, California is always on fire.
To be fair, the fire isn't covering literally the entire state. It is covering a large swath of it.
Don't break our image of this, Brian. Let us live the dream.
And then I said, "What about you? You're happy with it?" Which I asked his father. A little fire won't hurt anyone. Okay.
What?
What the fuck?
Ben makes
Oh, yeah,
sense now. Because
I'm a bit worried.
okay. So a bit of fire never hurt anyone, says Ben's father. Ben is an
Yes.
idiot. I think we know where he got it from.
Let me just turn on the
Either-
stove. Let me just turn on the stove and stuck my hand on it. Yeah, doesn't hurt. anything.
Either that, he's just so busy in his newspaper, he just didn't care what the answer. I know he's a pretty busy man, but that is a really stupid answer for a businessman.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, give me strength.
Well, it depends. What part of California is he in?
I still don't know. All I know is he says, well, he says he's in the heart of California, whatever that is.
That either
exactly.
means Los Angeles or San Diego. Mm-mm.
Hmm.
Or inside someone's hearts, we'll never know.
Well, I'm just sending him a text to see whereabouts in California. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh,
He
boy.
misspelt.
I want to.
He
wanna say LA.
misspelled all of his freaking all of his text.
So I
to
just
me.
had the horrible image of Ben curled up inside of a beating heart, pulling on a bunch of little veins like they're levers controlling the person.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Thanks for that very
That's your fault, Tux.
thank you, Brian. Yeah. Hades, stay out of this.
No.
No, where's the fun in that?
Yeah. Shut up.
Oi! I'm the only insane one here, boys.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. We've got these two bastards.
Yeah,
right
bullshit.
here.
We wrote the time that Twilight pranked Celestia. We wrote the one with Gummy and Boulder. We wrote the time that Mod got excited. We wrote
The
Queen Crystal.
idiot.
Well,
Okay,
until you
just
got
replied.
tackled,
We wrote switcheroo.
until
We
you
wrote
got
switcheroo.
Until you
What
got
happened when Mod got excited?
What?
He's apparently in Los Angeles.
I said, I
And
LA.
forget misspelled it.
I forgot. What happened when Mod got excited?
Oh, her.
You
did-
switch person.
Yeah.
Well, basically,
He got excited.
Yeah, basically what happened is Starlight was trying to make items that would allow like some weird abstract sentence of allowing Pinky and Mod to connect more spiritually or something. The items were incomplete, so when the two put the necklaces on, it didn't connect them spiritually, it just swapped their levels of enthusiasm. So Pinkie Pie still had all of her same interests, and so did Mod. Just the way they expressed their enthusiasm for them was reversed. So Pinkie Pie was very dry, monotone, and blunt about everything, while Mod became hyper, super, duper exciting and routinely broke the fourth wall because that's just the power all the pies have. Just only Pinkie's the only one who does it.
Well,
Mod?
we've seen Maud. I don't know the others. We've seen Maud do it at least in the show.
Yeah, one or two times. Yeah.
Odd sense.
Like in one episode where a guy tried to walk away from her, and all of a sudden she would just weeping angeled him.
I'd like to turn in. And then Rarity terrified the guy by talking about a fire in Mod's eyes that was not there.
Oh,
Right.
it was.
It was there on the inside. she
You can't see it.
she would have freaking punted him into the fourth wall.
Oh my god.
But I know one thing, which I did find out it is actually Ben, unfortunately, which I'm still finding it hard. Because it was like, 2 days ago, I asked, well, if you really Ben, prove it by calling me. But just before he did reply like this. Okay, I will call you, but I can't stay on the phone for too long. It does cost quite a lot of money. Because we're in different countries and all.
Well, I say he's
Holy
not
shit,
wrong.
he's speaking sense. Please don't be Ben. Please don't be Ben. Please don't be. And as soon as I heard his voice,
Apparently,
oh, for the love of
Still,
God.
I like how you link Ben being competent as being a bad thing.
Honestly.
It's horrifying because what will Ben be able to do when he knows how to do things?
Right.
He's already
As-
capable of driving through a college on a moped when he doesn't know how to do things. What destruction will he be able to do when he realizes that he has the capacity to do shit and knows how to do
Okay.
said shit?
hell
Future
What?
president of the United States, he might not be been born there, but screw it, he's Ben. He does what he wants.
I wonder.
And
Has Ben ever been tackled by police?
At one point, but that's because they thought he was going to try to rob a bank, but he only got his fucking hand stuck in his pocket.
Hey, me and Ben have something in common.
What?
And the way he was having his hand gestures, it looked like it was a gun in his pocket. He got stuck in there, so he.
How do you get your
he
hand stuck in your
stopped
pocket?
by
Yeah, me
security.
tackle
I
him.
don't know.
Me and Ben have both been tackled by police.
Someone who goes to my LARP society almost got tackled by armed police once in the UK.
I got tackled last Friday in the middle of Walmart.
Wow.
Anyway, is the
Wow.
scary conclusion to this? Well, a worrying conclusion to the story.
And it
I
is.
got
After
choked.
we had a,
I
after
want
we
to
had a
hear.
little small. Sorry.
I want to hear Tux getting tackled at Walmart.
A story for next week.
Next time.
But right
Next
now,
week.
to finish off with this worrying conclusion,
Stay tuned, subscribers.
after we had a quick little chat, he nearly forgot to tell me one little thing. Oh, before you hang up, yeah, just thought I'd let you know there is some more news. All right, what is it?
I'm
Well,
pregnant.
In just about 6.5 months, I'd be visiting Britain. Oh, see
Oh.
you soon, mate.
Lord.
The
That-
boy
Help
tries to
me.
the boy tries to swim over there.
6.5 is
He's
not
gonna
enough.
swim
The
across.
return of Ben.
He's gonna
That
swim over.
that was a
the
noise. That was a noise you made, Darkness. Ugh.
edge.
Well, along that guttural grunt of a sound, it is time for us to end. So, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed, and as always, we'll see you next time. Keep listening, people. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Hopefully, I'll be
Bye.
here. Come on.
Boy.
Ben is stupid.